How's it going, and welcome to No Fun Alloved's guide series on Waterdeep Dragon Heist, a 5th edition module. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the chilling autumn season of the Dragon season. Of course, there is going to be a ton of spoilers, so players don't watch this, but DMs that want that added insight on this subterfuge-filled engagement, go ahead and stick around because we have a lot to cover. And here it is, the encounter chain for the autumn season. As a friendly reminder for the autumn season, we have a blustering wind. And this wind is pretty detrimental to some people, as it gives disadvantage on all attack rolls made with ranged weapons, and in addition to that, you also have disadvantage on perception checks that rely on hearing, which could be a pretty big deal here. This encounter chain is going to take us spiraling through the city, interacting with the same NPC multiple times. However, your players aren't going to catch on, or at least not normally. There is a possibility that your players can catch on because they roll insanely good or you roll insanely bad, or if they just try and do something very clever, witty, or crazy, they can potentially find out that they are constantly interacting with the villain of the campaign, Jarlaxle. Wrestling the map from the automaton, your players will be given a name, A1 Phaneris Stormcastle, which will be found in the trades wards. Your players can start asking around and they will learn that this Phaneris is actually a lamplighter. Once your players make their way into the alley to find Phaneris, they are struck by an apple cart that has been stolen by some hooligans. A pretty easy dex check will result in no damage done, but if you have people that fail spectacularly, they will suffer 2d4 points of bludgeoning damage, which could theoretically be bad in the long run if this is going on in one crazy day. After helping out the kids, they can just walk off, or they can ask the kids, hey, do you know where this Phaneris person is? They can find Phaneris' house, but once they arrive, they will see that this place has been ransacked. And who has ransacked the place? None other than the Xanathar Guild. A DC 12 perception check will net the players finding a pool of blood that has been made semi-recently, indicating that this only just happened. We get a pretty nice list here on Phaneris' story, but the thing is this really doesn't apply until they actually start talking to him. So I think they should have moved this to when your players actually meet with Phaneris, but this is a good indicator of what's going on here. But here's the thing, your players show up here and they get no quest, they get no indicator, they get no nothing. So they have to be given something to continue on. What do they get? They actually get a meeting with the Open Lord of the city. However, it is not the true Laeral Silverhand, it is actually Jarlaxle in disguise. Laeral is going to talk to the party and say, hey, I'm glad you're here, there's something that I need you guys to do for me. I know for a fact that the Stone of Galore has been taken by the Xanathar Guild, and I'll point you in the right direction. So here's the thing, with all of the other villains, you typically don't have to be too subtle, you don't have to be too careful with your wording and actions, because it's more along the lines of beating up and whatnot. But with Jarlaxle being this individual, you have to be very careful, as your players may have an understanding of how Laeral operates. Maybe Laeral's already been introduced in your games, or maybe you just don't want to make sure that Jarlaxle gets discovered early. So have Laeral depicted here as someone that is trying to get someone to do something for her, but at the same time doesn't want to get wrapped up in any of the heat. If your players press on and they think that something's up here, they can make an insight check and contest it against Jarlaxle's deception. Good luck with that though, as Jarlaxle does have a natural plus 14 to that deception check. Regardless if your players figure out that Laeral is not actually Laeral, your players will be told the information, hey, you need to go to the cellar complex over there, and by the way, once you get the Stone of Galore, you can meet me at the theater. Moving on to the cellar complex, your players arrive in here, and they will discover that this place is in fact a Xanathar Guild hideout, as there's a whole bunch of monsters floating around here. We actually get a really nice roster here of what monsters are located where, and of course if you're playing online, then it comes with this. Pretty awesome stuff here. What's also really cool to note here is that located in Area 7, there is a mechanical beholder that the Xanathar Guild here stole, and it can be used, and that can be totally awesome for something if your players want to create a distraction, or maybe they steal this thing and put it up in the Troll Skull Manor. That's in fact what I did when I was a player in this module. Now this fight could go any number of ways. Your players could just storm in through the front door and start swinging. Your players may decide to go through the secret door on the side and go for a stealthy approach. No matter how they approach it, make sure to have the combat here fair and fun, as there's a lot of mechanics going on here. There's a whole bunch of Dwergar, so they can expand or go invisible. The goblins can run around and be chaotic. The half-ogre is drunk, and thus that can lead to a lot of fun things. The kobolds are cowardly, but are kept in line by the Dwergar that has the Stone of Galore, or, more importantly, that doesn't have the Stone of Galore. Because after your party battles their way through all of these monsters, they'll chase after Korkstrad Uxglum. So your players finally catch up to this guy, then they will find the Stone of Galore, and they'll have it in their hands, and they'll try it out, and then they'll discover that it's not real. So no matter what happens here, whether Korkstrad stays in the fight or tries to run away, I would make sure that the players catch up to this person and get that Stone of Galore, because if they don't, then they're just going to feel sad and miserable. Make sure that they feel like they got the Stone of Galore, but once they actually try it out, then they'll discover that this thing's just a rock. If your players are feeling particularly bold, then they can storm through the other location here, fighting a whole bunch of troglodytes and a gibbering mouther, and in there they'll find a chest which they can pry open and get a whole bunch of gold and a spell scroll of dark vision. Pretty cool, but more than likely your players aren't going to find this secret door, and more than likely they're probably not going to want to fight them if it has nothing to do with the Stone of Galore. Once your players have wrapped up here, then they're going to have to figure out what the heck's going on, in which case they will go to the theater and meet up with a one Laeral Silverhand. Except, of course, it's not. At the theater, your players are going to find that there is an awesome play going on named Saphiria's Booty. Classic stuff. When your players arrive and start enjoying the play, they're going to be met with a one Ronquan Mystere, who is totally a mystery, as this person claims to be a hand of Laeral Silverhands. Now, whether you have this exchange go down while the play is active, or you wait till after the play is done, your players are going to meet with Jarlaxle again, but this time in this disguise, and he's going to say, hey, I work for Laeral Silverhand, just go ahead and tell me all the information and I'll relay whatever's going on here. Your players show off that there is a fake Stone of Galore, and then Ronquan is going to say, hey, don't sweat it. Let's go ahead and talk to the guy that let us down here in the first place. We know that Fenera Stormcastle has been captured and is imprisoned, and you guys can go and talk to him. Now, once again, during the roleplay of this, you have to keep it believable. You have to keep your players understanding. You have to keep your players not guessing and second guessing everything. Because if they start to question things, they may be reluctant to continue on. But if they truly believe that they're on the heels of the Stone of Galore, then they're going to chase after it. Now, of course, if your players are working for Ronquan and Laeral Silverhand, they may be questioning, hey, why don't you just release this person? In which case, Ronquan here is going to say, oh, we can't do that. That would make us look bad. Which is true. Once again, have those answers at the ready. Make sure that the story is reasonable, make sure it's plausible, and make sure that your players are going to continue on working for the villain here. Now, me personally, I would have this exchange go on during the play, as there is dozens, if not hundreds of other commoners around here, just to ensure that a combat doesn't ensue. But if your players get really testy and a combat does ensue, then there's no way they're going to be able to take on Jarlaxle. Just by himself, he'll be able to take on a low-level party. But in addition to that, there's also some drow warriors around here, and they'll mop the floor of the party. If this does occur, make sure that 1, the drow don't reveal themselves to make sure that they are all in disguise. And 2, once they get done beating up the party, they don't go for the kills or anything. They simply throw them outside and leave them guessing. With the information in hand, your players will be guided to the courthouse to deal with a one Fenera Stormcastle. Now at the courthouse, your players have a task at hand. They need Fenera Stormcastle to spill the beans. Where is the Stone of Galore? And what I really like about this is your players have a huge list of ways they can handle this thing. They can try and break him out. They can magically influence him. They can get him set freed. They can call in a bunch of favors. They could bribe him. Maybe they lie to him. There's so many different ways they can approach this thing. And once again, reward that creativity. If your players are diving in deep with their respective factions, then they can call in some favors and get him set free. But if they haven't delved too deep, or if they've unfortunately done something bad, then that might not be an option. Your players can do a number of things as well. They could go to bribery, they could try to stage a breakout, they could magically try to influence them. There is just so many different ways they can approach this. Now, as listed here, one of the ways they can approach this is by talking to the Magister here, a 1 Helster Barch. She is a psionic who can detect thoughts once every short rest, and she'll try and read everybody, read the situation, read what's going on here. And through her, your players can learn some information, or they could try and set Fëanor free. So many different options at your disposal. Once again, don't just be limited to this textbook here, because your players are going to get creative. Your players are going to come up with a number of solutions here. Work with what they are giving you. Now, of course, if they go down the route of trying to break him out, whether they blow open a hole or they disguise themselves as guards or whatever, that obviously does have some legal implications. But if they go down a more nice route of saying, hey, Magister, we know that if he divulges some information, this could help us out, then maybe there is some things to be done here in the legal route. Of course, once again, this does go down the route of the more hands that they grease, the less gold that they're going to get. If they start bribing everyone with the promise of gold, and if they say, hey, we know where the Vault of Dragons is, more and more people getting involved is going to make that grand finale that much worse for them. Now, Fëanor will only talk and say where the Stone of Glory is unless he's magically influenced. But once he finally does reveal the information, he's going to say that it's by an old tower where there is no magic. And that is going to be a fun time. Now at the old tower, your players are going to step inside. But if they've been told that there is an anti-magic field here and you have a magic-heavy party, I'm sure some people are going to be crying. Now there's some bit of a troll here. Inside of this tower, there are several swords that are pristine. And they are just nice and neat and held up. And your players could theoretically take them, and because they look, unique and inert, maybe they take them outside. But as soon as these swords are taken outside, they animate and attack. And they are flying swords, so they are magical. If they are removed from the anti-magical field, they animate. But if they go back into the anti-magical field, then they are just rendered normal swords. Now, once your players make their way up the stairs, then you have to give them the carrot on the stick. You are going to have to show off that the Drow are running away with the Stone of Galore and they are going on the rooftops. And there is going to be a fun chase. So the unique thing here is there are named lieutenants in the Brigandarth, but if your players have already killed them, then you're going to have to replace them with other people, of course. But to make sure that this rooftop chase does go on for a little bit, the Drow has some fun tricks up their sleeve. They can levitate, they can cast darkness, they can do a number of things to try and get away from some people. But once again, with these chases, don't have them going for too long. Just make sure that it's a fun time and then it moves on to the next encounter. And to add that fun time, we get the rooftop chase complications table. Lots of fun things there. Your players will be going up against the Drow, and the Drow are going to be working side by side. They have a large HP pool, so realistically, it would be pretty hard for lower level parties to deal with them. But if they do deal with them, then they can just start throwing the Stone of Galore to another Drow and another Drow. And then eventually, this chase is going to lead all your party to Mistshore. Now, if your players roll incredibly terribly during the chase, then just have some commoners in the street saying, oh, we just saw some Drow going down to the Mistshore, and that'll easily prompt your players there. Now, at the Mistshore, the Drow are going to run and run, but where exactly are they running to? Well, funnily enough, there is a mechanical dragon turtle named Big Belchy that is being operated by some gnomes, and the Drow are trying to hop on that, and then Big Belchy is going to take the Drow all the way to the ships. Now, if your players are hot on the heels of the Drow, things are only going to get hotter, as Big Belchy is going to let out a steaming breath, which is going to do 4d10 points of fire damage, and you have a DC 14 dex save to take half, or if you fail, you take the full thing. So, of course, it's a really huge deal at the lower levels here that is probably going to knock out some people. After that, Big Belchy is going to start swimming away, and is going to start swimming to the eye catcher. So, here's the thing. Your players can do a number of things here. They could hop on board. They could try and snipe the thing. The players may have already beaten up the Drow. Maybe the players knock out the Drow and then they can get the Stone of Galore. Hopefully, your players can get the Stone of Galore here. But if they are slow on the draw, then unfortunately for them, the Stone of Galore is going to make its way onto a Drow ship. And that'll be covered, of course, in the future chapters. But here's the thing. If they do knock out the Drow who has the Stone of Galore, then the Drow is going to fall overboard, the Stone of Galore is going to sink, And then is going to be a fun time because your players are going to have to start diving into the waters, and presumably it's going to be pretty hard to find a tiny little item, and they may have to ask Grinda to operate the apparatus of Qualish. If your players are successful in nabbing the Stone of Galore, then it will reveal the information that the Vault of Dragons is located at the converted windmill. Now finally your players know where to go and they get to the converted windmill. This place, however, is locked up, so they're either going to have to bash the door down, pick the lock, or come up with something creative here. However, if the players are not being subtle, then they're more likely going to be seen by one of the neighbors who's going to call in the guards, and 8 veterans are going to show up 10 minutes later. But here's the cool part. Your players make their way inside, and they will see that there's a whole bunch of crazy paintings located in every single room. Once your players make their way to the top, they will discover the person Kaylin, and maybe they'll be able to uncover what's going on here. Kaylin was a famous painter, and she met with Neverwinter, and when they met, they had a torrid love affair that lasted for a little bit, but unfortunately, things went a little sour. Kaylin is very sad, and Neverember has gone away. Kaylin is not the only person located in this building, however. Her neighbor, and the only person that she really trusts here, is a one Vaspar Holmdreg, who is an old man who is half blind and is gonna be able to provide some information here, as well as provide your players lots of opportunities. So hopefully your players lean on the sense of subtlety here and maybe make their way inside using some coercive tactics. But if your players are gung-ho and just bust right in, then combat is inevitably going to ensue, which is really unique here because Kaylin is going to draw forth a whole bunch of paintings that spring to life, which is really cool. And not only will she be springing the paintings to life, but there will also be 6 swarms of rats which will emerge from the walls to defend her. So really nice dynamic combat encounter. Your players go up against Kaylin, and immediately there's going to be a Displacer Beast and a whole bunch of swarms of rats. And if Kaylin's available, she will run to other rooms and touch the other items here, and she can spring forth a number of things. Really awesome list here. One thing to note I will say is if there is a werewolf, it wouldn't make sense that the werewolf would be able to actually infect anybody with lycanthropy. But other than that, just having this awesome list of menagerie characters spring forth and attack the party is just a really fun encounter. It might take some time for your players to find the entrance to the Vault of Dragons, but with a DC 12 perception check located in Area 4A here, they will find it, and they can find a stone staircase that's going to lead all the way down to the Vault of Dragons, and inside, that is when your players will be able to find what they've been searching for this whole time. And just like that, that is the autumn season. There is a lot of unique twists and turns here, there's a lot of fun dynamic encounters to be had here, and I just like the theme of it. I like going up against intelligent enemies. I like going against enemies that aren't just vile and cruel. They have a sense of purpose. Jarlaxle is the least villainous of the villains here, as all the other ones want to do crazy evil things. But Jarlaxle, he's just more of a self-serving individual. The subterfuge you can pull off with Jarlaxle is absolutely a blast. There's so many things you can work with it. Don't just be limited to what's in the book here. Do more and more with it. Not only have Jarlaxle be dressed up in various outfits, but make the other drow be different people as well. There's a lot of fun things you can do to slowly make your players go crazy. So go ahead and tell me, is Jarlaxle going to get his hands on the Stone of Galore? Or are your players going to get to it first? How are your players going to get the information from Daenerys? Are they going to bust him out? Are they going to sneak in? What exactly are they going to get up to? And how much gold are they going to lose before they can get all the gold at the end? Go ahead and tell me all those things because I want to know, but that's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching, thanks for listening, and thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are incredible, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.